Like, I'm really interested in not just how can you make the most money, but get paid twice. Always get paid twice or three times, right? If you can do it.
If you are a regular writer on Medium, there is no denying the fact that the platform is changing. What with Ev Williams' latest post about the changes regarding Medium's relational model, writers have been thrown into this web of confusion. They don't know whether they should stick to their old habits of writing a new article every day, or is it about something completely different? A few days back, Coach Tony, who is the founder of the Better publications of Better Humans, Better Marketing, and Better Programming, recently wrote a series of articles about where he thinks Medium is headed to and what are some steps writers can take currently to keep up with the changing model of Medium and to make sure that they continue making money even though the platform is evolving and bringing in new models. For those of you who don't know, aside from founding these better publications, Tony has also worked closely with F. Williams, and he was the first publication owner to have a publication that commissioned writers to write. For example, if you don't know, Better Humans pays a flat rate of $500 to every selected article. And apart from the medium owned publications, there is no other publication that pays that kind of money to writers. So we all know that Tony and Ev have a relationship that goes back years. And I wanted to pick Tony's brains and ask him what he thinks of these changes on the platform. Tony has also been very vocal about why you should write with a book in mind. And that's a very difficult concept for many writers to grasp because most people on Medium are not here to write a book. They are here to write article after article and build a name for themselves or maybe a personal brand of their own. So, what does it actually mean to write with a book in mind? And what are some important steps that writers can take currently to keep up with the changes in media? And to discuss all these questions, I invited Coach Tony himself to this interview to talk about where he thinks Medium is headed and what are some steps we can take currently as writers to stay afloat and rebrand ourselves along with this changing model of Medium. But before we go right into the video, I want to know your goals on Medium. If you are currently a writer on Medium, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you want to continue writing articles and making money on Medium? Or do you want to move on to other platforms that pay? Or is there something completely different in your head? Please let me know in the comments and we can have a discussion there regarding our goals as writers on Medium. And for now, let's dive straight into the interview and listen to Coach Tony's views on Medium. Hey Tony, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to be doing this today. So, before we get started, for our watchers, can you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself in your own words.
Sure. I feel like, I mean, I run a business that has a number of products that are all in self improvement and professional development. We think our job is to help people level up. And I think I'm most well known for a coaching platform, Coach.me. But but for your audience, probably I'm most well known as someone who's pretty active on Medium because I own and run three big publications there: Better Humans, Better Programming, Better Marketing. And then occasionally I also write there, and then behind the scenes I was involved in some of the changes that are happening in the programming topic, where we've been where we recently brought in a big book publisher, and we've been kind of just upping the game over there. So that's who I am, I guess. I think one of the reasons I'm so involved in Medium is also just because the backstory of that is that I used to work with Medium CEO a long time ago, and so just I like when I can, I like to be helpful, and then sometimes being helpful turns into something a lot more, and that's what happened at Medium. I'm way more involved in Medium than I thought I would be originally when I was just like a casual blogger there.
Right, and
So I am.
you have recently written a series of articles about the changes that's happening in Medium, and you have also talked a lot about why it's more more important now more than ever, that how people should write thinking of a book in mind, right? And this is aligning with Medium's relational model. So many of my writer friends who I have talked to on Medium, they interpret it in this way, that now the only way to be successful on Medium is if you are writing a book. And many people are not interested in writing a book, they are just writing on Medium because it helps support them. So I would like to know your take on it. Can you? We have already talked about this, but can you please tell a little bit
Yeah.
more about what you exactly mean by write with a book in mind?
But I like to I like to say the same thing, but from multiple different angles, because people hear it differently, and then if they hear it, from a different angle, maybe they'll understand it a little bit differently, and it'll prompt something that works for them. So that's the number one thing about my world, coaching, is that we're not actually advice givers. We're here to facilitate you to make a decision for yourself. And so when you hear me say write with a book in mind, I'm trying to prompt someone to think differently about what they're doing on Medium in a way that's helpful. If it's not helpful, then don't pay any attention to me. So that, I think that's the number one thing always when I'm talking, is like the listener has to understand that um, I'm not giving exact directions. I don't even think that's possible. And that's, like, I think most coaches agree. Advice often falls down because it's not possible to be exactly right. You have to kind of help. It's like a collaboration. So that's what I was thinking with the book in mind, is I wanted uh, to get people to think bigger. What does it mean to think bigger? And if I could come at it from a different angle today, um, I don't know if this will excite people, but the economics of writing, right? Like, I'm really interested in what is it, not just how can you make the most money, but how can you write in a cost effective way? So, one of the things that I wrote about recently in that series of Write with a Book in Mind is that the reason journalism is expensive is because a journalist has to do research. And the way you could get equally or better quality writing is if you just went to an expert, because that expert already did the research. The expert has less work to do. And I think people don't think about that, the sort of the cost of writing, right? And so if you're doing research, which a lot of people write on Medium, where they're like, they pull a couple of ideas, they spin it together, they retell a story that's been covered elsewhere, but they retell it in a more um, maybe a more entertaining way. A lot of that work is that they had to do the research. When an expert writes, they already did that research, so that's paid for, and a lot of times they're able to write just off of the top of their head, and so the cost of writing for them is much lower. So what that leads me to think, and a lot of, is that not so much write with a book in mind, but get paid twice. Like, that's a different way to say the same thing. Like, that's a different mantra. Always get paid twice or three times, right? If you can do it. So, an example I gave from my own writing is I have this big, like, iPhone optimization article that has 2 million views, which is by far the most successful thing I've ever written. I mean, obviously, that's a lot of views. And all of the research that went into that article came out of a coaching group, like a productivity coaching group that I run. So I got paid by my clients to do the research, and then I got paid a second time to write it up. And so that's like an example of getting paid twice. It's not necessarily writing with a book in mind, but it is an example of getting paid twice. And I think the same thing when if you were to more explicitly write with the book in mind, you're like kind of putting the core pieces together, getting the core ideas fleshed out. The idea in the back of your head is then you'll get paid a second time for the book, and then you'll get paid a third time a lot of times as the consultant. And look, I mean, for some people, money is all that matters. But I think, where my head is at is that money is required to, a lot of times, to craft something wonderful. And so if you can get paid twice, it means you can put out more effort. You have more time. You can invest more in it. You can build something that's a higher level of craft. And then, yeah, and I think, that's what I'm ultimately interested in, is what are the best products we can put out in the world. And each of our articles are their own little product, and the more we can get paid for them, the more we can invest in them.
Right, that makes a lot of
That's
sense
that's
because
that's a
yeah.
different way to think of it.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing research, if you're helping people, you're anyway going to get paid for it. So if you write about it, you can get paid more.
Yeah.
That's there. But the thing is that many people don't write research-based articles on Medium, right? They write about their personal stories, they write about relationships, and people who are not
Yeah.
coaches, people who write from their own experience. So, what do you think
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
writers? How should they approach this idea? Because they don't necessarily write research-based stuff. So, what should they do?
Well, I mean, by definition, you're an expert in your own experience, right? Like if you're writing a personal story, that's an example of you writing from the position of expertise. You are an expert in your own life. No one knows more about it than you. Um, and so that, I mean, looking at it from an economic lens, you have less research to do. I mean, all the research has already been done. Um, but what is the goal of these people that are, sometimes it's fine also to write just for the love of writing, right? Like there's a lot of people, maybe even the majority of Medium is people just blogging to blog. But we're talking about people that are thinking about themselves as professional writers or aspiring professional writers, or professional writing is a component of their overall livelihood, right? Um, so for those people, yeah, I think probably they would be. I don't want to say definitely. This is the. I think they should consider what they would have to change to get paid a second time. So, is it write a book? Is it, that they're writing in preparation for consulting, or, I'm thinking about all the ways people get paid twice. In the programming space, people are getting paid as a way to build a portfolio, or writing as a way to build a portfolio, and then the second payment is the new job, right? And I mean, it's really common. Uh, like I track people almost that they disappear because they're happy at work, and then suddenly they start writing again, and then the next thing you know, they got a new job, and it's like, I'm not sure it's the chicken and the egg. Like, were they unhappy, and that's why they started writing because they knew it would work, or writing just kind of attracts recruiters. So, so that's, that these are these other ways to make the writing worthwhile. Because I mean, what does Medium pay roughly? Like I think it's reasonable to think Medium is going to pay you 10 cents a word. I mean, it varies a lot, but it's like some amount of money, and depending on where you live, it can be enough to live on. I think most writers on Medium are hungry to be more stable, and especially since Medium's payments fluctuate so much. It's really the fluctuations, I think, that would make me most nervous. Because otherwise it's kind of just this temporary windfall from Medium, and then it goes away, and you don't know when it's going to go away. So, I mean, that's the other benefit of thinking about, there's this second way that I can get value out of having done this writing. So if you're writing about relationships, what is that second way? I mean, is it to build a portfolio to write other places? To be a coach, to be a speaker? Yeah.
So it's always to think with the bigger picture in mind, right? Think of your final goals and
Yeah.
then write accordingly on Medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a friend who works with InfoSec, and whenever he does some new hacking exploit, he writes about it on Medium, and then he gets all these gigs
Yep.
from companies because of these Medium articles. So that is another
Exactly.
example of getting paid twice, I guess. write about your exploits or
Yeah,
your experience so you can get more gigs in the similar area.
right. That goes back to part of the kind of right with the book in mind was to encourage people to become experts. And so, I think there's this there, for a while, there was this pattern where you could do a lot of articles on Medium across like every topic, and it would sort of work out for you and you'd make a decent amount of money. But when you do that, you don't develop any expertise. And if you don't present as an expert, then you don't get consulting projects out of it. Or like, so yeah, I think, your infosec guy, he he's writing from a position of expertise. One, that it's his own exploits that he's covering, but also he's writing on the same topic over and over again. And when you visit his profile, you're like, oh yeah, this person seems really legitimate, and I need to work with someone like that. So um, yeah, I mean the book is kind of the organizing function, which some people misunderstood as literally write the book, but I meant more write with it as um, an end goal. So if you have a book in mind, then most of your writing should be related to the topic of that book. I mean, you see this all the time, and James Clear did this with Atomic Habits. Like, he wasn't writing about I don't know. I mean, he was he was everything he wrote was about habits for like a couple of years, everything. And each of those articles drove traffic to a mailing list, and he used that mailing list to help himself get a book deal and to refine what he wanted to say in the book. And then he wrote the book, and then it's a New York Times bestseller. I mean, that's a great example of the power of, he was really clear and focused on one topic.
Right, that
Yeah.
makes sense, definitely. I also remember you said once that writers like James Clear, they are not coming to Medium right now because Medium won't pay them enough yet. I mean, they won't earn as much
Oh,
from Medium
yeah.
as they get from other jobs. So my question is a little bit hypothetical, but supposing someone like James Clear were to join Medium today, what do you think they would do differently from the people who are already writing on Medium?
I think they would be really focused first, like one topic, and also always be driving to a mailing list. I mean, that's the book author playbook, is to build a mailing list. Like I don't know if people have ever seen what a book proposal looks like, but when you go to a major publishing house and put together your book proposal, it's not just what's going to be in the book. A big part of it is how you're going to promote the book. And like literally, it'll say, "There's this many people on my mailing list. I have this many Twitter followers. This many, Facebook or LinkedIn or Medium." And I mean, I saw a book proposal the other day uh, that listed out the articles that he'd published in Better Humans and how many page views he got. It's like the editors who purchase these books, they give you a deal ahead of time, give you a pretty big advance. They're swayed by you saying, "Hey, I published a kind of a trial balloon on this topic and it got 100,000 views on Medium." Like that matters to those editors. And actually, we know book editors who basically troll Medium looking for those big, looking for authors. Um, so I think it's really like focus first. Um, yeah, that's the number one thing I would do, and that's the number one thing that I think they would do too. Yeah. Um,
So yeah, it's if somebody has some area of expertise and they're really passionate about their topic, so it's a really
yeah.
good time to only focus on that topic and not think of
Yeah.
other topics and not get swayed, even if some topic might make more money now. But writing about a
Yeah.
niche will get you more money in the long run. So that level of focus
Yeah.
needs to be
Like
there.
way more money.
Right.
Yeah. A mainstream book contract is like a $250,000 advance. So, I mean,
Yeah.
compare that to whatever your medium earnings are, right? And if you're in a different topic, like if you're writing about software engineering leadership or infosec, Like the difference in salaries can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. But even it doesn't have to be that much money for it to. I mean, I like to talk about the money, but it also, if I talk about it too much, I just feel obligated to step back with why, right? Like, what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to achieve some level of comfort for yourself. You're trying to make some positive impact in the world. And, the money is a tool for that. And I think in general, it Medium is not set out to be full-time employment for writers. Like, it's a place that you can write sometimes. So, what we're talking about is kind of filling it out. And also what you said about like Medium doesn't pay enough for James Clear right now. I think that's the thing that I also worry about. People who aren't thinking about how they're going to raise their own game on Medium. Medium's the pool of subscription money that gets paid out to authors. It gets bigger all the time, and every time it gets bigger, it means the top authors make more money, and but it's not necessarily the same top authors. So like as the top payments go up, better authors get attracted in. And so if you don't raise your game at the same time, you're going to have a nice thing is just going to disappear on you. And I think you see that all the time. It's just super common in the Facebook writer groups I hear about for people to say, "Oh, my earnings plummeted." You know what? Maybe it just got more competitive and you didn't compete with it. I mean, that's not always. I mean, there's a lot of fluctuation that's kind of natural in the ecosystem, but I think I've definitely seen long term people who seem like they won Medium and then didn't keep raising their game, and it just sort of it fell apart on them. So, yeah.
Right. So Medium can be like an online CV, an online resume where you write your articles, and
Yeah, it
this
can
is
be.
what you show for your future, like for a book deal or a potential employer. That that's sort of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it can be. That's one of the um, I think one of the really good ways to treat it if you're trying to make it part of a professional
Mhm.
kind of
Right,
play.
right. So, recently, Ev Williams wrote an article about how Medium is evolving as a platform. And in his own words, he said that Medium will spend some editorial resources on identifying writers and offering them support, deals, and editing to find their audience. So, like
Yeah.
for an average writer on Medium, what can they do that they will also be eligible or they'll be considered for this support that Medium is talking about?
Just that you're asking this question makes me wonder if you know more than I do. The there is some I know there's a program going on. You can actually see it because it was using certain hashtags for a while. And when our editors asked the authors, like, "Hey, what is this hashtag about?" The author said, "We're not allowed to tell you." And so I don't know.
Okay.
Um, I think there is some sort of pilot support program going on, but it's a pilot, and um, yeah, this is kind of the subtlety of the fluctuation in Medium. Is I think that they're laser focused on building their subscription, so you can really predict that they're going to do things that help grow the subscription and end things that aren't helping. And so this feels to me like there is probably going to be some experimentation about how to make it safer for authors to come on board. Like if you don't, like 1 in 10 articles is a mega hit, and the other nine, kind of don't do as well. I mean, it is definitely a hits business, publishing is. And so it's tough if you're not sure. If your first 3 articles don't do well, maybe, you just want to bail and it's not worth the time. And so Medium can kind of even that out for authors. And it makes sense that they would be doing it. I don't know. I don't think anything is going on that's um, uh, like you could optimize for other than what's motivating them. What's motivating them is they want writers that help grow the subscription. So like that's something I've said to a lot of people recently is you could consider focusing on writing that's subscription worthy. Like why would someone pay to read, read your thing? And that's that's the same kind of thinking that led me back to book publishing. That um, the example I use, because this is an article I wrote, is what is my writing process, right? Every author on Medium has written an article about, oh, here's how I write, and you should try it too. It's such a good system, right? It's like a genre of article, but you've read that article 100 times, and unless you're Stephen King, which he wrote a whole book uh, about that topic, his process. Unless you're Stephen King, it's not really something that you read and think, "Oh, I'm so glad that I paid money to read this," right? And so, like, when I wrote it just because I like to exercise the muscle of writing. A lot of times, I'm writing just to write. But the articles that I wrote that are kind of what I say book worthy, they're unique. There's something you can't get somewhere else. There are more expertise behind them than you could get anywhere else. And maybe they don't always have the same level of page views, but I think that they're more in that vein uh, um, of what I call subscription worthy. But it's like there's some stuff I write that no one else could write because they didn't do that research. They didn't, these are, systems that have been tested in my world, but nowhere else, right? And I think that for all the writers on Medium, I mean, if you're putting out cookie cutter articles that other people have read before or written before, yeah, I think they'll get read again. I mean, that's the thing. It's like people read the same types of articles over again. You'll get the traffic, but I don't think anyone will look at you and go, "Oh, we're so thankful we have you on the platform." Right? And yeah, I mean that's again, I'm just pushing people to think bigger, because and I feel pretty confident doing that because there's so many benefits of taking the time to be an expert at something.
Yeah. So my
So
biggest
as
takeaway here is that you should write something, a series of articles, not just one article. Most of your articles should be
yeah,
something that no one else but you could have written.
right. So how do you do that? So that's tricky, right?
Yeah, it's tricky, but
You
you
have to
can,
live a life that
yeah, play to your
yeah,
strengths, I guess.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
most
I
people
mean,
they
we
come,
talk about
yeah.
this. No, go
No,
ahead. Go ahead.
actually, most people they come to Medium and they see that a particular kind of articles are doing well, like quotes from a
Yeah,
famous person who will that will help you become more
yeah, right,
productive, or drop a
right, right.
celebrity name like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, and these are the books
Yeah,
that
right.
this person recommended. So these articles are definitely going to be read. They are going to earn like hundreds of dollars. But again, this is something anyone else could have written. It's not very unique. It's just a simple Google search and you will find out Bill Gates' book
Yeah,
recommendations. So,
yeah, yeah. Uh, I think probably for most people on Medium, I think my understanding of the people I've met in these Facebook groups, writing groups, or who are kind of wanting to learn more about how to be a writer on Medium, uh, probably the answer is a mix. That if you're not established as a writer, it's good to just always be writing. So there's no such thing as bad writing, right? Like write about Elon Musk's morning routine, even though you're not there. That's my thing about non-experts, right? Like you weren't there. You didn't watch his morning. You don't know if it's true or not, right? But if you want, write about it just because you're exercising the muscle of writing. But in the back of your head, be trying to figure out, well, what is a topic that you could focus in on? And when you're able to, yeah, really start to focus in on it. I mean, it's a ladder, it's a path that you walk up. But if you're trying to make money off of Medium, maybe you have to balance that with articles that pay well for you. Not everyone has the luxury of saying, well, I'm not going to get paid for my writing for a year, but then I might get a big new promotion at work out of it. But most people don't have the luxury of waiting a year to get paid. So yeah, you absolutely have to balance those things.
I'm just thinking out loud here. A good way of doing this could be mixing up, of course, and keeping your super niche articles maybe pinned to your profile so that anyone who comes to your profile, that's the first thing they see. And even if it's not a collect, even if it's not like you have written say 20 articles, you can't pin 20 articles. You can only pin 5, but you can make an introduction post
Yeah.
and then link to all the different parts, and then you can keep that pinned on your profile so people would come and say, yes, this is something I've never read anywhere on the internet and it's so useful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not something I've done, but that's also I'm more. It's not as important for me as an author to make it work. Like I'm more just doing publishing, but I definitely thought about that where it's like I already have collections of articles that like are like a third of a book, and yeah, I would like to collect them and say, like um, here's my like mindfulness strategies for productivity, and I have like 5 articles there, or here's my habit building collection, and I have a bunch that come from the coach.me work where we a lot of that focus there is habit coaching and training habit coaches. And so like I think I could write a habit book if I wanted to go that direction. So like I think kind of promoting those collections of articles, it's useful. Even if it don't get a lot of traction, it gets you thinking a little bit more about what are the holes, what haven't you written about. Maybe you haven't written about it because you don't know it well enough to write about it, in which case it is worth your time to research it because like that's a budding area of expertise. I often find when I'm writing within the same topic area that I'm cross-referencing my articles very naturally. Like, hey, if you want more info, you really should read this other thing. And I can't do that as well when I'm just, riffing or shooting off the cuff, which I do because I also just like to blog. I like to write. So yeah, everyone has to find their own mix, I guess is what we're saying, huh?
Yeah, actually, like after that, after you wrote those articles about writing with a book in mind, many of my writer friends were super demotivated because they feel that they are not yet experts enough to write about one particular topic, because many people are really young, they are in their
Yeah.
20s, and when you're in your 20s you're not really
Yeah.
expert at anything unless you are an exception.
Nope.
So most people are in that boat. But like you said, that if you have experienced it yourself, then by default you are an expert in that topic, and you can obviously write a book about that, can't you? I mean, it's possible, right?
Yeah. It's also, it's if you write within, I mean, if you do enough research, you can become an expert. I think if your idea is I'm going to research something for an hour, write for an hour, publish it, never come back to that topic, no, you're not an expert. But if you're putting days into it and you're writing multiple articles on the same topic, you're getting feedback on what you've written and coming back to those topics, then yeah, you do become an expert. And this idea of like becoming an expert in your 20s, it reminds me of the book that I wrote in my 20s. I think I was 25, 24, I think. And it was exactly that. I was not an expert when I started the book. I sort of stumbled into it. It was one of those like lucky breaks where a friend of mine got a book contract and she asked me to help. I was going to be her co-author, do like 2 articles. I thought, all right, well, I could at least learn enough to write those 2 articles. And then she had some life stuff come up and she couldn't finish the book. Actually, couldn't even contribute to the book. So here we are left with this book contract. I'm the co-author, and the main author, who actually knows the topic, nowhere to be found. It is like not available. And I just thought, well, let me give it a shot. Let me try to write this thing. And it was painful, as it should be. I mean, you're trying to. It's not trivial to write something that's meaningful, that is really going to help other people. I researched the heck out of it, and I just like chapter by chapter, I grinded through, and at the end, I was an expert. Like, and especially then, after I published the book, I had to write articles and give talks about it. And after I had done all of that, Yeah, 100%. I'm an expert in that topic still, actually. I'm not really a programmer on a day-to-day basis anymore, but someone asked me a question on that topic like a couple days ago. I was like, boom, here's how you do it. Here's why. There's other ways you could do it. Here's why you don't do it that way. I completely had that expertise, and it was driven by a massive amount of research. And that's the thing, the kind of the content mill where you're just like on this treadmill churning out new articles. If they don't, if you don't put them into some container where it's like one topic that you're really going deep on, then you're not an expert. You never develop that expertise, and you're really only getting, as I say, paid once for that work. So it's the easiest way to get one article out, but what does it add up to? We had in the self-improvement, there's this concept deliberate practice, and there's like this pejorative. It's the one pejorative I ever allow myself to use in self-improvement, which is the experienced non-expert. So like, someone will come to you and say, I've got 10 years of experience, but then you look into it and you realize they're not any better after 10 years than they were at 1 year. And it's like, what did you do with those 10 years? And that's what I feel about writers who are covering too many topics, is they'll have written 1,000 articles and they still won't be an expert at anything. I mean, I'm not here to judge too much. But I think people can do better. Right? You could do better than that. And I'd love if someone wrote 100 articles that they come away feeling like, oh, I actually know way more about a topic than almost anyone on the planet, because 50 of those articles were on the same topic. But if you wrote 100 articles and you can't say that, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah. There was a lady I follow on Instagram, and I've been following her journey for 2 years. Initially, she was a model. She posted modeling pictures, but then she started talking about body positivity, and those posts got way more views than her modeling pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Then she started talking about recovery from eating disorder, and even those got better views. Mm-hmm. And now she has shifted from modeling to being an expert on body positivity. And then she does this podcast where she interviews doctors about eating disorders and how to recover, and therapists on how to have a good body image. So it's like she became an expert on this journey on Instagram, and she got a book deal with Simon and Schuster, which is like a good publishing house. So it's the similar thing that people can do on Medium, right? Become an expert by writing. On the journey, you become an expert. You don't have to start as an expert.
Right. Exactly. And I hate to hear that some of your friends were demoralized. Right. I mean, I think that if they focus, they would all end up developing some important expertise. And it's almost like, well, what a wonderful opportunity to become an expert at something in your 20s. Like, that's so young to be an expert. But yeah, you got to do the work. And that's, I guess maybe that's the kind of like part of the message I'm trying to get out is, pick something, do the work. And, the story you told is actually a good example of, maybe you pick something and it's the wrong thing, but it leads you to the right thing. She went from topic to topic to topic until she found the thing that she could really own. So yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, that will actually help a lot of my audience, because when I told people that I was interviewing you, the first thing they wanted me to ask you was this: that if I am not an expert, is it even worth trying on Medium? Because views are down for everybody, and you said that think of a book in mind when you write. So people were getting demotivated, but I'm sure this will help, because you don't have to be an expert right now, but you can focus and find your niche, and then eventually you can always collaborate with people who have actually done the research. That will be even more valuable article, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that helps a lot.
It's kind of funny. I mean, I'm latching on to something here that the sort of the expectations of, views are down for people that are feeling like they they aren't experts at anything. And just I want to pause at that and be like, how special was it that views were ever up? It's like everyone has this like ladder, this journey that they go on as they start as a beginner and they work their way up, right? And there's this period where beginner writers were it was special how many page views they were getting on Medium. But that's different than saying they deserve that many page views, right? That and that's kind of the issue about always like you can't get stuck there. And yeah, maybe there was a period where a new writer could do really well on Medium, but then it just got more competitive. And if you weren't trying to graduate from new writer to whatever the level after that is, then you're gonna get left behind. Um, and in my opinion, that's good. We're not. I mean, you think about the readers. Like, flip it around. Who do you want the readers to be reading? We want the readers to be reading the best possible information. I mean, I think I do, and yeah. So I don't know. I feel some obligation as a writer, not if I'm getting a lot of traffic, that you have to be bringing your best self to it, and it just um, if people who don't really think they have any expertise for writing is good practice, but I mean, I don't think maybe you want that many. Like, it's not like you they're reading you instead of someone who knows the topic better. I don't know. I just always feel like this obligation that the writers have to go deeper. And I don't. I mean, but then that's paired with all of your friends, all of the people that you're talking to. They're capable of going deeper. Like, I don't think that they're not incapable of doing it. I just think that they haven't been asked to do that, or no one sort of showed them the way before. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very positive way to look at it. But I think it will help a lot of people.
Yeah. Um,
And
yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully it's helpful. Um, how else can we be helpful?
okay, so there was another question many people had. This was again related to Ev Williams, the post that Ev Williams made about relational changes on Medium, where he said that the amount of money that was being spent on the publications was not justified to the kind of traffic that they were driving and the audience that they were building. So they
Yeah.
are limiting the resources that they are spending on these publications.
Yeah.
So the question was that is this, and also in Ev's own words, the role of publications has decreased in the modern era because early on publications were like a stamp of credibility, but now writers are the ones who build credibility. So the question is that is this going to affect the better publications? Because of the Better Humans, because everyone knows that you offered a commissioned articles on Better Humans. So is it going to affect the better publications?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, we're always asking ourselves, how do we fit into the ecosystem and how do we do better? Um, we're in no way satisfied with where we are. Um, because, as we get bigger, we get smarter, we get more budget, we get more ability to just always be doing better. I don't really see any other way to approach it. So the word that we pulled and used the most from Ev Williams's post is the word affinity. I thought it was really interesting when they reorganized their internal editorial, which is tricky to talk about because there was a bunch of like sort of nonsensical bullshit press coverage of it that was not based in reality, in my opinion, in any way. But and also for the most part, it's just Medium moving budget from one thing to another. But then you're kind of left with this, how do you talk about these editors that are basically out of their job? I mean, they've been treated fairly well. I mean, most media companies just shutter and that's the end. Today's your last day, that's the end. And all the editors that left Medium got like 5-month severances, which is really generous, I think. And also, I think obviously did very good work. Like that was a very good editorial team that did very good work. But very good work is not necessarily the same as the right work for Medium. And I think they were never able to quite make it all line up. And in my opinion, everyone's at fault there. Like I thought the product didn't change fast enough, and I thought that editorial didn't flex as much as they needed to. And that's what put it in my head to just start talking about this from an economic perspective. You know, their internal publications, when they want to pay their writer $1 a word. Like that's kind of like a standard professional rate. So if you think about what that means, is like they might be paying $500 to $1,000 for an article. Some of the articles were definitely more than $1,000, plus the editorial time on top of it. And you know how much you make on an article. Even if that article didn't, that article might lose $500 every time they think about it that way. Every time one of those publications was publishing, they're losing $500 every article. And so the more they publish, the more money it just gets burnt, right? And that's despite publishing really good articles. And so well, the economic structure is wrong there. No one is doing bad work, but they're in the wrong system. And that's where I came to this idea of why do their articles cost so much? The articles cost so much is because they're doing it with journalism, and journalism is really expensive. It's beautiful and it's important because without journalists, a lot of topics would never get covered. But Medium's economics don't support that right now. And maybe if Medium could be 10 times bigger, maybe it will support it. But right now, what Medium's economics support are people that are getting paid twice, experts. So if you think like those were really high quality publications, but losing money. I just did this deal, I was the deal maker for it, where I brought 140 books in, like the full content of all these books from the pragmatic programmers. So programmers on Medium read Medium for reference a lot. There's a lot of I need to get my job done. I'm stuck. I need to look up how to do it, right? So I brought in a huge corpus, back catalog of very high quality reference material, right? Well, how did I make that cost effective? The books had already been written. Someone already paid. This is a perfect example of getting paid twice. Is those writers got paid once to publish a print book, and now they're getting paid a second time. Medium's economics aren't having to support the full cost of those books. So to me, that's that example of Medium's budget just sort of getting shifted towards things that are more cost effective. And I think there's this tendency to think, well, that means lower quality. And I was like, that's not true. It's that it's higher. I mean, the pragmatic programmers, those books are as high quality as anything that you would have found from Medium's previous editorial team. It just, the economic structure of them is different. And so it's possible to do a deal with them because the prags get paid multiple ways. And so the economics work out. Whereas I don't think it's possible now. You always have to keep in mind that Medium is a growing entity. It's not possible now to make the economics of brand new journalism work, or no one figured that out, how to get paid a second time, essentially. And because the platform isn't enough to cover that. So what was your question? I wanted to tie it back to something.
Yeah, the question
What
was
am I
that
answering?
are the better publications going to be affected by this budget cut?
Yeah. That's, wow, I really went far afield. No, the better publications are have always been break even or profitable for Medium, like or they're like or close to it. So there's enough fluctuation that on a given month we might lose money, but we're not for Medium. Like we have a deal where they pay us a certain amount, and it's possible for them to lose money, but it's not a big. We're like close enough to the economics working that there's not a big change. But the word that um, what I started to go on, this word that we latched onto from Ev was affinity. Like, how do you have publications that people have an affinity towards? And I think we haven't cracked that particularly well yet. And this is what we've been working on for all of our publications. So you'll actually see, like, Better Marketing is this great example of um, some of our best performing articles of all time are articles that we wouldn't bother to publish now because they don't fit into where we want that publication to go. So we want that publication, the primary affinity is that's a place for marketers to read other marketers. And yes, entrepreneurs will read, and yes, a lot of other people will read that publication, but primarily we want it to be serving marketers writing for other marketers. Like there's just a real passion for the craft of marketing in that community, and we don't think anyone really serves it that well, and we think we can serve it really well. And so there's this, like, we used to publish these articles that were just sort of kind of interesting, like a bad a bad orange juice promotion got a lot of page views once. Pepsi caused a riot in the Philippines. I mean, these were like interesting stories, but they're not like affinity building from our perspective. They're not about connecting to our core audience. And I think that that's the thing that all three Better publications are really trying to hone in on. How can we have true fans for the publication? And that means not not just publishing anything. I mean, we just like really focus in on those true fans. So yeah, I think we're all, and for us, that's just what we consider leveling up, and it wasn't particularly affected. Like our thinking on it didn't change very much with Medium shuttering or whatever, reducing their internal publications and their internal editorial staff. Yeah.
So affinity basically is like the loyalty that's there in the readers, or is it more about the loyalty in the writers?
The readers, and I think of it as like a connection, not a loyalty. I mean, I don't need to trick people to come back. Like I want people to feel passionately like, hey, this is a publication that cares about them and is useful to them. And I think what the way affinity got me off into this topic of the Medium's internal pubs is the publication they did that had the best affinity was Level, which is a publication for Black men in their 30s and 40s. And Jermaine, who was the editor there, was just like, this is a group that is not well served, and they need to be they need a publication that gets them. And so that publication always had this loyal following in a way that I think the other publications weren't able to quite grasp, like, this is our target market. And so because they couldn't do that, people might like one article, but they weren't just, this is my understanding, and I'm sure each publication had fans, but like there's a level, I think, that you needed to get to above where they actually were. I mean, I don't have all the information on what happened with them, but I do know for sure the economics didn't work. Yeah.
Right. And if anyone is running, and if there are people who are running publications now on Medium, even if they are partnered, I think affinity is a good field to focus on, right? To build that connection with your readers. So just quickly, like from your understanding, can you give us like some ways in which publication owners can build affinity with the readers?
I mean, go in and focus is the one, obviously, like the um, fewer articles, but all on the same topic. That's a big one. I think. I think personality. I mean, that's what Ev was sort of saying that individual authors do really well. I think that a publication can still have a point of view, right? And I always encourage our editors to have a point of view and include themselves in the um, kind of in the I don't know, like be visible and at some level, community. I think we do some of that in better marketing, where we try to at least bring our authors and readers together. And I think we'll probably do more of that in Better Humans too. And yeah, I mean, all three publications, honestly. And we did a conference for two of our pubs at the beginning of the year, which I think you spoke at, right? Um, that like that's having some community around these is one of the things that you know yeah, I'm making it sound like a thing to try. I'm like literally pretty close to hiring a full-time events person, so uh, I think that that would be a very good kind of add-on. That here's something Medium doesn't do that you could um, build build community that way. We ran that event that you spoke at, Momentum 2021. We called it sort of a New Year's resolution kickoff. That was coaches from Coach.me, writers from Better Humans, writers from Better Marketing. And we had 1,600 attendees at that thing, which it was like barely marketed. I mean, I sent out a couple newsletters, but that's it. And 1,600 happy attendees. So I think you could do stuff like that. I mean, that's how we're thinking about tackling it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's very helpful,
Um,
because I think it will be helpful for publication owners also who are trying to grow their publication. These three terms that
yeah.
have a target audience and be visible. The editor should have a
Yeah.
personality of their own and build a community. I think that's true for
Yeah.
writers also. A community is like the most valuable thing that you can have. So yeah, definitely. Thanks for these tips.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Great. That's a good summary of it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this. Your answers were like super, super helpful.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Okay,
Bye.
see you then. Wow, what a valuable interview that was. So, my key takeaways from it are in no particular order. First of all, you are on Medium, not just to write articles forever. You can build a brand on Medium and you can move ahead to get a job, a freelance gig, start your own business, or maybe even get a book deal by big publications. And to do that, you have to niche down. Niching down and creating a category where you are the expert, where no one else on the world can write articles as detailed as you, is very important. And the best news is that you don't have to be an expert to do that. You can figure out by writing lots of articles on Medium, analyzing the stats to know what the readers want, and also knowing what you want as a writer, what topics you are really passionate about. When you figure that out, you can find your way on the platform. You don't have to start out as an expert. You can write and then you can research, you can collaborate with people who have actually done experiments, and you can build a name for yourself in that field. And this is something that's going to help you in the long run as a writer, because if you position yourself as an expert, if you project the image that no one in this world is as much accomplished in this topic as you are, then you are going to be the number one in the world in that topic, in that niche. And that can be your own category, it can be your own area of expertise. And Medium can be a platform that will help you figure that out. Otherwise, there is no other way you would know what you are truly passionate about and in which field you are capable of delivering the most value. So, the whole idea of writing a book on Medium can be a journey on self discovery. By writing on Medium and analyzing the stats, you can figure out what your writing voice is and what topics you are truly passionate about. Aside from that, Tony gave us some really helpful tips on how to build a publication and how to engage your readers and how to develop that affinity with your readers, which I think is super valuable. And I'm so grateful for Tony to have done this. And if you are interested in following more of Tony's work on Medium and his publications, I'm going to leave a link in the description, so make sure you check that out. And please don't forget to let me know what you think of this interview. What is your opinion on starting a book, on writing with a book in mind? What did you interpret it before? And how was this thought changed after watching this interview? So please let me know all of that in the comments. I will be happy to start a discussion because, as you know, I love Medium and I'm always ready to start a discussion on Medium. Aside from that, I recently started a community on Discord where Medium writers, they support each other, they test out their ideas before publishing, and they also give each other feedback on drafts before they go into publications. So if you are not a member, it's completely free. You can find the link in the description. Make sure you join that if you are passionate about chasing your writing goals on Medium. So that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions for Tony or for me, make sure to leave them in the comments and I'll get them answered ASAP. Take care, have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.